So in 24 years that I've been doing communication training, storytelling training, I realized this, that to become a great storyteller, you have to become a great story finder. When you realize the power of storytelling, our tendency as a presenter, right? First thing like, oh, I need stories. So what do? We go to the web. We go in, I need a story about this. Now the AI, right? You go to chat, you go to Claude, right? You go to this AI language model to look for stories. Then the next level, you might have stories from books and audiobooks. The next level might be, hey, you ask a colleague or a friend, do you have any stories? Now we're gonna hear, I believe Kevin will be talking about next week about storytelling in the context of how he got business from builders, right? And then you have family and friend stories and your personal stories. Now, the whole point, and I really hope that you take this message in your heart, that the higher you go in a pyramid, the more influential you're gonna be. Why? Because when you go to chat, when you go to Google, when you go to Claude and look for a story, when you read a book, there's a big chance that someone already heard that story. And when you go into the storytelling mode and they already heard the story, it still works, kinda. Plus you have to memorize the story. Plus it's not super congruent because it's not your story. And most people never had the process, the word, I know Carl like process, never had the process to be able to identify and find their own stories. And I'm gonna share my process with you today. So I'm here to tell you that the higher you go in your pyramid, right? And the more personal stories, when I say personal stories, are stories that happen in your life. In the context of being a loan officer, the stories that you heard in your company happens to you, maybe happens to a colleague, and then you tell from your own perspective. A lot of times people don't realize that I can tell someone else's story from my own perspective, meaning how I see the story, and now I can add my flavor to it, and now it becomes my story. Why? Because the higher you go in the pyramid, right, the more original and unusual story, right, because it happens to you, most likely it's not like everywhere. And then on the other side here, there's more emotional engagement, meaning that you are associated with the story because it happened to you. Now, Roberto, does that mean that if I see a story in an audiobook, book online, I cannot tell? Of course you can. Right? I tell stories that I've seen books and read. They work, obviously, I want to be clear. But the more you develop the storytelling muscle, the more you develop the storytelling muscle, the more effective you're going to become. Right? Now, a lot of people, one of the confusions they have, they say, Roberto, when I'm communicating, I don't like to talk about myself. Right? Now, in sales and influence, it's all about your consumer. It's all about real estate agent. I agree. It's all about moving them from point A, where they are, to point B, 100%. You're not talking about yourself. You're telling a story that happened in your life to give context to them. That's the difference, right? That's the difference. So one of the things that I learned in 24 years, the best presenters, which you are, right? The best leaders, the best communicators, one-on-one. By the way, here's another thing. Storytelling is not a public speaking thing. Storytelling is a communication thing, right? And I'm here to tell you one more thing. With this AI, I love AI. I use AI every single day. I'm a pro AI user. But the more AI we have on content marketing, the more sameness we have. If you're spending time online right now, you see how many people, the content's written by AI, there's AI video, everything sounds the same. And what does not sound the same are your personal experience that happened to you. Successes, failures, lessons. So the sooner you become aware that your life stories that happens in your business, with your kids, with your spouse, on vacation, the more of those stories you know how to organize them, frame them and be able to tell them in a way that is engaging, the more power you're gonna have. So my goal when I work with my clients, we can use the stories from web, from AI, from the books, of course. But my goal is that ultimately the result, when you become a storyteller, you have a collection of stories. Why? Because now life is easy. Now you go to a presentation with a brand new realtor, builder, consumer, and you have all those stories in your pocket. Now you're not gonna tell all of them, obviously, but you're always gonna be able to have the right story in the right moment. So Roberto, how do I do that? So let me show you how you can do that starting today. Now, I believe that there's so much power in simplicity, okay? When people make things too complicated, sounds cool, right? Oh, it sounds great, they don't do it, right? Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. That is not my quote. I wish I remember who said that. But simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. When you can make complex things simple, right? As a matter of fact, if you study any behavioral science program out there, any book, they're gonna tell you that any good idea that went viral, or a company or a product, is because it is easy to implement. So when you make things harder, they can be cool, they can be intelligent, but too hard, people are not gonna follow through. So once I realized in my career that is, hey, I'm a storyteller, I know the science, I know the types of stories, how do I find it? Right? Because I'm gonna be speaking, I'm gonna be presenting a lot. So then I come up with this process of every single time, okay? Every single time, as I'm going through my life, something weird, awkward, different, any emotional reaction that happens to my life, I capture. And I capture in a Google Doc. Everybody has a free Google Doc. I just captured. Now, sometimes it's just a story idea. And sometimes it's actually a story. And I start this process a long time ago. This is my version 1, as you can see here. And this is a white beaver. There's some stories here that some of you know me for a long time. The icing on the cake with, instead of saying icing on the cake, I used to say ice on the cake. And then one day, Carl White was doing a presentation on, I think in Dallas, and he showed a slide of a piece of cake with ice on it, making fun of me. Remember that, Carl?
I do. But I'm a little concerned. That the story about your wife is called White Beaver.
Oh, no, yeah. I'll tell the story. I think I shared the story already, right?
And welcome to the Loan Officer Breakfast Club.
So now I gotta tell the story. So when I gotta tell the story. So now when I was, my wife is from El Cajon area in Rancho San Diego. Rancho San Diego is a nice area, super nice area, next to El Cajon, which is a really bad area. So when you start dating years ago, one time I went there to get a soda and I saw all those guys, kind of a gangster with a little white, shirts. And then to make fun of her, I say, hey, baby, I'm ready to wear my white beaver. She goes like, what? She goes, yeah, the little white t-shirt. She goes, Roberto, that's not a white beaver. That is a wife beater. And I'm like, and now everybody start laughing. Her friends, I'm like, that's not that funny. So I go to the first dinner, her house, meeting the parents, the grandparents. So my wife goes, Roberto, do you want to tell the story about the white beaver? And I'm like, so I told the story, everybody started laughing. And I'm like, I don't think that is that funny. And she goes, Roberto, do you know what white beaver is? I'm like, of course, the white animal, you know what I mean? She goes, no, that is not a white beaver, you know what I mean? There's a different meaning. So now I have that story in my pocket. As a matter of fact, when Frank, you were there, we were doing a video marketing class with Carl in Orange County, 500 loan officers in December. The whole room shuts down, right? Remember that day? The power went down. I was doing a presentation on YouTube, and then which I was showing how the tags and the title, I was showing everything. And imagine the whole room went dark, 500 people, what do you do? Then I start pulling a lot of stories because I have stories in my pocket, and I go, how many of you want to know the biggest mistake in my career? How many? And the white beaver story, which I wasn't planning to tell here, I told 10 years ago. Why? Because it is on my memory bank. So one of the disciplines. So thanks for reminding me of that, Carl. So one of the ideas is this. Please do this. You're gonna thank me. Right? Don't overthink. Open up a Google Doc. Every time something happens to you, funny, weird, interesting, even if you don't know the meaning yet, doesn't matter. You write it down. And then later on, when you have time, once a week, you block half an hour and you start writing those stories, right? So my version 1, as you can see, I have 120 pages of stories now. Then I went to version number 2. So this is one I go now with AI, right? Super easy. What I did, by the way, the cool thing about those stories, you never heard them before. So every time I have a presentation, I can pull the stuff out of my memory. Why? Because it happened to me. Easy. Now, if you want to go to the next level would be something like you could develop, like for example, you could organize. So what I did this morning in preparation for this call, I just download that document, I put on Claude and say, just organize my stories into categories. So for example, I am not a loan officer, I'm a speaker, coach, trainer. So the areas that I talk about, for example, I talk about sales influence. So now I have all the stories here. I have stories about leadership and mindset. I have these stories here. I have stories about storytelling, communication. So I have these stories here. I have the images. Now, one of the things that I do too, I'm not against creating an AI image. I'm not. But I'm telling you, is way more powerful if you can attach an image that you take from your phone, right, with a story. If you're doing any either social media post or presentation, would land way more powerfully. So now I have a visual that I remember, and I have just watching this picture here, right? I thought this picture remind me of another story. When I lived from San Diego, when I moved from San Diego to South Carolina here 8 years ago, everybody like, oh, South Carolina is super awesome, it's hot, it's great. So 3 years ago, I remember waking up on Wednesday morning and the whole thing was white, covered in snow. It was like February 3 years ago. The whole thing was crazy. And I'm like, wow, it's South Carolina. Now, here's what's interesting. The month prior, which was around 50 degrees or so, I was inviting my kids and my wife to go walk on the beach because I love the beach, right? And nobody want to go. And then on that day, on the snow day, was 28, my kids, which they don't have gear to protect themselves because never snow here, they spend 8 hours outside playing, 8 hours. And then I go to bed at night, I'm like, isn't that interesting? On December, on a beautiful day, 50, it's too cold, or 40, too cold. 28 outside, snowing, 8 hours outside. What's the difference? You know the difference is? It's because the snow is special, is unique. Just like you. You are special. You are unique. So we have to embrace what happens to you and use it at the highest level. If you want to stand out, obviously you can stand out by being proactive, stand out by delivering amazing service. But when it comes to communication, to make your message pop, right? Those stories are gold. Now, so how do you translate this into loan officer land, right? And that's something that Carl, Chris, Frank can help you. Again, I'm not a loan officer, but if I were a loan officer, okay, I would open up a free Google Doc. I would come up with these categories: consumer stories, right? A good stories, realtor stories, the stories that when the agents, new agents, experienced agents, whatever the objections, the agents, the objections they may give you, or the agents you wanna attract. Man, have those stories. I know some LOs work with financial planners, organize your financial planner stories. I know some real estate agents work with CPA stories, right? We just heard about builders coming up next week. I'm gonna have a top builder story. So now I have a collection. Look, what I realized in storytelling is like this. Have you ever been in a situation in your life where you're in a party hanging out, 3 people. Person A tells a story, everybody laughs. Tells a joke, right? Person B tells a joke, everybody laughs. Now, both people look at you, expecting you to tell a joke. You're like, I don't know any jokes, right? I know it happened to you. But the truth, you heard hundreds of jokes in your life. But because you didn't think it was important, you didn't organize your jokes. Don't remember. So if you understand communication, and if you've been studying storytelling, understand the science, the neuroscience behind, because storytelling reduce resistance, reduce counter-argument, increase connection, increase the monetary value of things, stories, increase the memory, retention of information, all these benefits, then you'll be like, okay, I gotta do this. How do I do it? How do I start it? Right here. Because to become a great storyteller, you have to become a great story founder. So this is free. Open up a document, free. Open up the categories that you know you're gonna be talking to consumers. You're gonna be prospecting realtors. Some of you're gonna be all your objections should have stories, right? So now you start building your database, your own storytelling database.
Hey guys, I gotta jump in because we're at the top of the hour. Brad's got his hand up too. Wait, Brad, but okay. For you said you had something for us, maybe Roberto. Do we just go to the website and visit you there?
If you go to influencology.com, I have a little storytelling, how to sell with the stories. There's 10 stories that you can use in your sales, and 10 is that 20 videos. It's for free. Just put your email there. I'll send it to you for those.
So you just go to influencology.com and
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There's a pop-up essentially pops up and they just register. They get all those assets. Hey, thanks for checking out the highlights of today's Loan Officer Breakfast Club live call. Remember, you can join us live every day, 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday at breakfastclubzoom.com. If you'd like to see full replays, you can get those by becoming a member over at Mortgage Marketing Animals Next Level. If you want to learn more, go to MMAnextlevel.com. And thanks for joining us here at the Loan Officer Breakfast Club website. For that, we'd like to give you a free gift. If you just scroll down to the bottom of the page, we always have a giveaway for you, something really cool. With that, you have a great one. We'll catch you on the live call. See you then.